Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, darlings, to another episode of the Dangerously Divine podcast, where we explore all of the intricacies of feminine energy and tapping into your innate magnetism. If this is your first time here, hello, I'm your host, Rachel. I am a feminine energy and magnetism life coach and Reiki healer. I am thrilled to embark on this journey of self-discovery and female empowerment with you over the course of this episode. If you don't already, please go follow me over on Instagram at I am dangerously divine and screenshot wherever you're listening to this podcast. Send it to me so that I can share some love with you. And thank you personally for giving this show a listen. I'm always posting the juiciest stories, the most magnetic challenges, and free courses and little tips with you all to provide value to my audience. So I promise following me is worth it, and I will never, ever spam your feed. I want everyone to embark on the journey towards becoming a confident, empowered woman, and I am here to support you in all of your endeavors. So give me a shout out over on Instagram, let me know you're listening, and be sure to say hey. Before we get into today's juicy topic, I wanted to take a moment to share something truly special with you. This episode of Dangerously Divine is brought to you by my exclusive one-on-one coaching program, a transformational experience that is designed to help you tap into your innate magnetism, reclaim your power, and create a life that is as radiant as you are. Close your eyes for a minute and picture this: you plus me in a sacred space where we dive deep into the depths of your soul, truly uncovering your hidden talents, releasing those limiting beliefs, and harnessing the power to embrace your authentic self with true purpose and desire. My one-on-one coaching programs are for the most elite, ambitious women who want to spend the next 6 months embarking on a journey of self-discovery and empowerment, where together you will learn how to harness the power of your feminine energy to manifest your deepest desires and live a life that is truly divine and aligned. If you're craving that next level, clarity, confidence, community, support, or even just that little extra sparkle in your step, my one-on-one coaching program is truly the ticket to your transformation. So if you're ready to unleash your inner goddess and step into your fullest potential, then I want you to head over to my website, which I will link in the show notes, to learn more and fill out the application. As I've mentioned on a few other of the recent episodes, I am not going to be offering one-on-one coaching after the end of March. My business is transforming. I have tons of exciting new projects in the works, and I'm going to take a slow step away from my one-on-one containers. So if you've been eyeing this program and maybe have been a little bit unsure if you should dive in and make that investment in yourself, there is truly no better time to do that than right now, because I do not know when I will be opening this coaching program again, if ever. I genuinely want to see you succeed. And in my one-on-one coaching program is where you'll find that courage to rewrite your story. You'll have the clarity to know your desires and reclaim your power, and you'll get that self-confidence and love to fearlessly stand in the light of your own feminine radiance. I have walked this path before, and I know the way to the life that you have always imagined. A life filled with love, abundance, joy, and magnetism. So if you're ready to shed those layers of doubt and fear and step into the fullness of who you are and what you desire, then this journey is for you, and you are being called to do something much, much greater. As I mentioned, I will no longer be offering this program after March. So if you're curious to learn more, head to my website, check out all the juicy details on my one-on-one coaching program. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at I am dangerously divine, or you can pop an email into my inbox at Rachel at I am dangerously divine. I cannot wait to have you inside this program and watch the beauty and magic of your life unfold before your eyes. But without further ado, let's now get into today's episode of the Dangerously Divine podcast. Welcome to the Dangerously Divine podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Loren, entrepreneur, life coach, and your new spiritual bestie. We dive deep into all things feminine magnetism, mindset, and empowerment. Prepare to unlock your full potential and activate your feminine gifts. If you're an ambitious woman who's ready to stop playing small, step into your feminine power, and claim a life beyond your wildest dreams, then you're in the right place. So go ahead and turn up the volume. You're about to hear juicy stories, inspirational advice, and transformational tips that'll help you up-level your life and align with the divine goddess within you. More self-confidence, freedom, and abundance are all just a play away. Thank you for listening and enjoy this episode. Not to be overly confident at all, but dang, do I love my podcast intro. It's crazy that I was able to buy that music and edit that intro without having any podcasting experience. And I've never edited an audio track in my life. Every time I listen to it when I'm editing the show, I'm like, dang, I did that all by myself. Anyway, hi, how are all of you listening? I'm doing fantastic. Last week, I uploaded a very special episode with Brooke Kikos where we talked all about feminine wounds, which is something that we have not covered on this show before, and it felt really appropriate to talk about that right on International Women's Day. However, I haven't really done a solo episode in a little bit of time, and I want to give you guys the tea that happened in Chicago, because I was ranting about how excited I was to go to Chicago, and there was a little bit of drama that went down, and you know I like to keep it real with you all here. So I will be sharing a little bit of that and my lessons from what exactly went down when I was in Chicago. And if you haven't listened to the previous episodes and don't know what I'm talking about, recently I went to Chicago. It was all I could talk about for a little bit of time. I was so excited to go. I had been to Chicago before and just loved the city and the river, and it was just so lively and clean. And I just met so many great people there that I really felt called to go back. And in that trip, the first trip that I went on in Chicago, I had matched with a guy on Tinder. So if you don't know, I'm single, ready to mingle, looking for love. And I was on all of the dating apps. And I had went on a date with a guy in Chicago just for the hell of it, just to see what is out there in different parts of America. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go on a date in Chicago. Matched with this guy, went on a date with him. The date was fine. Wasn't a love connection. And he knew that I lived in LA. So nothing real would actually come from it because there was no initial spark. So I, had a fun time with him and it was great, but it wasn't a love connection. So that same night, I was like, okay, I'm not ready to go home. I'm still want to be out. I texted my friend who I went to Chicago with, and I was like, hey girl, are you still out at a bar or something? I'm going to come meet up with you. So she was out with her friend, and I met up with the two of them, and I was just not feeling really social, but I also didn't want to go back to the hotel. So again, I'm swiping on Tinder. And don't judge me for using Tinder. I've found some of the best guys that I've ever dated from Tinder. Honestly, I feel like most guys are on all of the apps, Tinder, Hinge, Bumble. It really doesn't matter. I've seen so many repeats of the same guys that are on all three apps. So anyway, no hate for going on Tinder, please. I'm on Tinder and I matched with this guy. And this was, how do I put this? The most dangerously handsome, looking man I have ever seen. Like, looked like he was out of a romance novel, like tall and buff and like a great head of hair and just had these like dreamy brown eyes that you could get lost in. But also like kind of looked badass, like had a beard and an eyebrow slit. And I was just, oh my God, I was captured by like just the way that this man looked. Totally honest, because, it's a dating app and we see photos first. So my first message to this guy, and he had super swiped me, was, please ruin my life. And if you know me, like that is my sense of humor. I was like not actually asking him to ruin my life, but I was like, this is me flirting. Like it's me acknowledging that he's a handsome man and he probably knows it and gets girls all the time. But like, it's humorous. So sadly, it was like midnight that night and I was leaving the following night. So I didn't get to meet this man at all when I was in Chicago back in September. And when I tell you that this man and I have been talking since then, I mean, it has been incredible, our level of communication. I got back to LA after this trip. We added each other on Instagram. We were kind of talking a little bit on Tinder, a little bit on Instagram. He would send me memes and I was like, what is this guy doing? Like he's all the way in Chicago. I don't understand it. And then there was one night where I was out with my friend and we were like just FaceTiming all the cute boys in our phone just to see if they would answer. And this is like the chaotic fun stuff that girls do when they're out, or at least my group of friends does. So we FaceTime him and he doesn't answer, which is fine. I wasn't expecting him to answer. We had never talked on the phone before, but he had called me back the next day. And basically we were on the phone for like 3 hours and never stopped FaceTiming after that for 6 months. So basically I was in a sort of like love is blind situation with this guy. Of course, I saw him. I knew what he looked like from FaceTime, but I had not met him for 6 months. And he was going to come to LA for like my birthday and February and then had work stuff to do. But I still loved Chicago and I had a great time when I was there. And this man who I had not met had nothing to do with me having a great time there. And I still planned on going back, like regardless of if we were talking or not. And so it just so happened that I was going back and we had been talking for 6 months. So all of that to say that I was really excited to meet this man who I had developed basically a long distance emotional relationship with. And when I say this, it was definitely not a one-sided thing. We would talk FaceTime for hours on end every night. We would send each other memes, we would text, and it was very much reciprocal. And we had, talked about everything under the sun, our lives in general, where we saw our future. He followed my business Instagram and knows what I do for work and was really supportive of that, which is sometimes hard to find. And we just seemed like we were so aligned. Of course, like any other relationship, we also went through ups and downs. And side note, I kind of hate calling it a relationship because we had still not met for 6 months at this point. But it was a relationship because we were very much invested in each other. So, everything seemed like it was aligned, but we did, go through some of the quarrels that couples do. And I like to call it showing your teeth. I feel like when people first get in a relationship, especially if you've had a lot of time to work on yourself, you're very sort of naturally guarded and might not be as impressionable, or I don't want to call it like naive, but like you've done the work on yourself and you're very cautious of whoever you're interacting with. And that's a great, beautiful, natural thing. But sometimes it can come up when certain situations occur, let's say, fighting with a partner. I like to call it showing your teeth because it's like maybe you're not fighting and you're not breaking up and it's not this big argument, but it's just like a dog, like snarling at another dog. It's like, okay, I see you, I hear you, I know you're there, and this is why this situation triggered me. Or this is not something that I'm willing to accept because I've done so much work on myself. So I like to call it showing your teeth when it's not exactly a fight, but it could be. So anyway, we had done that a few times, and it's totally normal to show your teeth to someone that you've not met yet, but also just any sort of new relationship, new person that you're bringing into your life. You have to show them how to treat you and show them what you're willing to accept, what you're not willing to accept, and things that should go on. So we had done all of that. So when I went to Chicago, obviously I saw him. And at first it was a little awkward. If you know me, I'm a little shy at first, especially because it was someone who I felt like my soul recognized. My heart knew this person, but my physical body didn't. So they were kind of not in sync. So it took a minute for me to warm up to him. And it took a minute for, him to show me, hey, I'm someone that you can trust. I'm someone that, you've spoke to for the past 6 months. I'm still the same guy. You can put your faith in me. And so I did. And I let my guard down a little bit. I'm not going to get into too much detail of what we did, but we had a fantastic day together. It was after I let my guard down, he really felt like someone familiar. He felt really comfortable to be around. We were talking, laughing, eating together, sharing stories. And we had went on really 2 fabulous dates within this one day that I was in Chicago. And I started to see my future together with this man. And I know you're waiting for that other shoe to drop because I just said that there's tea and now I'm starting to picture my future with this guy. But I will say that I don't think that it's a bad thing. And I will get into why in a minute. But I feel like our brains always try and think about the future. And so I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that this man was treating me right. For this first day I was in Chicago, I had been in an emotional relationship with him for 6 months, and he was good to me, and I was excited about it, and I wanted more. But things took a turn for the worst. I'm not going to get into too much detail here. A, because I have processed it and I have moved on from the situation. And B, this is a public podcast, and I don't want to shame anyone for their behaviors, even if it's not aligned with mine. So I'm going to be a little bit vague here, so forgive me. But I noticed some patterns occurring in his behavior. Like I said before, we had just spent the whole day together. And so realistically, things should have been okay. But somewhere at some point, it seemed like he was picking fights with me. And then when I would try and address it, he would either retreat and say that nothing's wrong, say that we could talk about it later, say that, he doesn't care, his feelings don't matter. And so everything that I was trying to communicate with him about, he just really shied away from. And that's a big red flag for me because I am a very open, very honest person. And I believe that you cannot have a romantic connection with someone if they're keeping their guard up. And also if they're not valuing their own feelings. On top of that, when he finally did break through those feelings of being jaded and came forth with how he was feeling, he was really manipulative. He was gaslighting me. He was moving the goalpost. All of the therapy words that I have learned over the past 3 years, this man was doing to me. And it was really clear to see that because I have dealt with narcissistic abuse before. And it is something that has taken 8 years for me to get over. And it's something that I'm really good at indicating now. So when he started behaving like this, I was just rocked to my core that this man could behave like this with basically a stranger. I had just met him that day. And yes, we had talked for 6 months prior, but if he was acting this way with me on day 1 when we're together, what is it going to look like if we're, together for 6 months? Or if we, get married or move in together or have children? It is not going to change and it's not going to get any better, especially because, I don't want to say I'm a very healed person, but I'm very self-aware of all of the work that I've done. And we had talked about it, and he's quite the opposite and was very closed off. So there were times where I was like, oh, you should talk about that with a therapist, or, say, you should try meditating because it might help you clear your mind a little bit, or, you should go to bed earlier, even just like things like that, where I'm trying to offer him, some sort of information that could potentially help him and benefit him. He was so closed off. He was so negative. Like I said, he was invalidating his own feelings. He started invalidating mine as we were fighting. And all of that to say, I know this has been a really long story, is that I had to walk away from this man, this gorgeous man that I had been talking to for 6 months, who I envisioned a future with. I suddenly envisioned a new type of future, and one where I was not happy when he started showing his true colors. So, of course, it is not a very easy thing to do. I had, thought that this man could be the one. And as soon as he started showing me all of the unhealed parts of himself, all of his triggers, all of his trauma, and all of the things that he was unwilling to accept about himself or try and heal or change, that is when I knew it was time to walk away. So it was not a very pretty or clean break, but I had to do it. And I left, and I just kept saying in my head, I will keep me safe. I will keep me safe. I will keep me safe. And that is something that has helped me in the darkest, craziest, most confusing times, because I know as women, we don't always trust our intuition. We can try and give our all to any situation, but it might not always work out, and it's not always meant to be. And so in those times where I have to make snap decisions or snap judgments, I really have to trust myself. And so constantly I was saying to myself, I will keep me safe. I don't necessarily know what that looks like. I don't have a roster of men waiting to court me, but I do know that I am on my journey of embodiment, healing, growth, spirituality, and I cannot, put up with a low vibration person. I need to set boundaries for someone who is not willing to do the same level of work that I'm doing. And B, I need to stay strong in what I know about myself and in what he had shown me, because it was not aligned. And so all I knew in that moment is that I would keep myself safe and that I had to leave the situation with him and that I would be okay. I would land on my feet. So there it is. There's the story of what happened in Chicago with this man. And I do want to say that my whole phrase of I will keep me safe does not mean that I was in any physical danger. At no point did I feel like I was in physical danger, but it's the emotional baggage and all of that manipulation that he was putting on me that I literally felt a shield go up around me, like I was protected by some divine force, and that I felt 100 times emotionally, mentally stronger to just be like, no, and leave and walk away and honestly never talk to him ever again. And even more of a silver lining than that is I still had a fantastic time in Chicago. I met great people again. I ate great food. I went to so many fabulous places with my friend. And honest to God, I'm still thinking about moving there because I just had a magical time and I was not going to let one negative experience with one negative person destroy my whole entire idea of what Chicago is. So all of that to say, I've learned quite a few lessons from that experience that I want to share with you today. So we all know after hearing that story that my previous triggers had stepped in. Like I said, I had been in a relationship with a narcissist before who exhibited all of the same behaviors. And so I knew that that was not what I wanted out of my next partner. And I knew that that situation is not healthy. So those were obviously coming up. But if you've ever been in a situation like this, you do know that it is hard to walk away. Obviously, it's hard to walk away from any sort of partner relationship, but especially if they are a narcissist, it's a little bit more challenging because they can be so nice and accommodating and sweet in some points and then completely flip the script on you. And that's kind of where also the gaslighting comes in, is because they make you question your own reality and make you question situations that occurred that, maybe are in your favor, and they're flipping it around to make something your fault, or, say that you didn't say certain things or that you did say certain things. And it's like, then you start to second guess yourself. So anyway, if you've been in any sort of toxic relationship like that, that it is really hard to leave, especially hard to leave any relationship. So my first thing that I want to say here is, now that it's been about 2 weeks, I'm home. At first, I was anticipating for myself to feel sad. And I was like, Rachel, you were just in basically a 6-month relationship with this man and talking to him every day. And now he's suddenly gone from your life in such a drastic way. Like, you're going to be sad about it. And, I was kind of preparing myself to be sad. But honest to God, it did not happen. And I think I'm beyond that point where I know it's not going to ever happen. And there's a few reasons for that. You could chalk it up to, oh, Rachel, well, you and this guy had never really actually met in person, so that's probably why you're not sad. But no, it's the fact that I so strongly listened to that inner voice in my head, that, that alarm that was going off, ringing, Rachel, get yourself out of this situation. I will keep me safe. That, of course, that inner voice, that like divine guidance that was speaking to me through my intuition, is not going to make me feel sad because I did the right thing. It is incredibly important, especially in times of doubt, to go with your gut, listen to your instinct, and your intuition will never, ever lead you towards something that is not meant for you. So in that situation, when my intuition said, Rachel, get the heck out of there, and I did, of course, I'm not going to feel sad because I'm listening to my intuition. Second thing I'm going to say here is that while this situation was not ideal, I was definitely not being tested. And I know a lot of women, my clients, my friends, the memes on the internet are like, oh, the universe is testing me to see if, I'm still stupid, if I'll still like go back to my ex. But that is such a backwards way of thinking. And I'm here to tell you that the universe is not out to get you. It is not trying to fool you or test you by bringing people or situations into your life to see if you're still stupid. The universe is not malicious like that. It loves you and it wants to see you succeed. But the same sort of people and situations are going to keep coming into your life if you react in the same way. It's like that quote that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And side note, that's not the actual definition of insanity. Insanity is a mental illness. But that is a famous quote that goes around. And the same thing is true of the lessons that we have to learn from the universe. It's not a test, but it's a life lesson. You repeat what you don't repair. I will say that again. You repeat what you don't repair. If you are not acting in alignment to your highest level self regarding a certain situation, then that situation will keep showing up in your life until you get the message and start acting in alignment. And that's what we mean when we say embodiment. I always say that I want to attract a divine partner who is fun, loving, passionate, sexual, spiritual, someone who's intimate, open, and vulnerable, yet masculine, and someone who's compatible with me and it feels like we've manifested each other. But if I am constantly dealing with F-boys and I'm putting up with that in my life and not setting the standard or my boundaries, and I'm just constantly accepting the little love that they give me, then that is all that is going to show up until I start setting those boundaries. And that is exactly why it was so easy for me to walk away in Chicago. And this can be applied to so many other things besides just your love life. If you desire a different reality than the one that you're currently living, you have to act different and you have to be different. It all starts in your mind. First, you have to change the belief about yourself. When I first started intentionally looking for a partner, I believed that he was out there and I believed that I was worthy of him and finding his love, but also worthy of love myself. And then I slowly began to change my identity to match that belief. I started going to the gym and working on my physical health because a high value man that I want to attract also cares about physical health. I began developing hobbies because the high value man that I want to attract has hobbies and respects a woman who is learning and growing in herself. Then slowly, I started to change the way I felt and thought about things. I started reading more into psychology and self-development and expanding my mind. And that truly changed the way that I viewed myself and how I could show up for my future high-value partner as the highest level version of myself. And so when I began to change my inner world, change my thoughts, feelings, actions, and my relationship to myself, then things in my outer world started to change as well. And so that's what happened when I met this man, and he felt so unaligned to everything that I had been working on in myself. Like I said, I felt this shield protecting me almost from his energy and from his negativity because it did not mirror the inner world that I had beautifully cultivated for myself. Of course, I'm not taking all of this action and doing it for a man. I'm doing it for myself because the highest level, most divinely guided version of Rachel has a masculine, secure partner by her side. So it's almost like I'm seeing the future and I'm acting in accordance to that and not my current situation. I stopped asking myself, what do I need to do to get this partner? But instead, I became the person that I needed to be, my highest level self, to let that divine partnership in. So come hell or high water, he's coming to me. I know that my perfect person is on their way. With that, I feel like I'm going to end today's episode. I know it was a little bit more of a personal story than my usual tips, tricks, and hacks, but I felt it necessary to come on here and share all of the wonderful life lessons that I myself had to learn from this situation. And hopefully it's provided you with some inspo and empowerment. I know for me, my journey to the perfect love is still unfolding, but I am strong in my faith and I trust the process. Even in these moments of uncertainty that sometimes arise, I am so unwavering in my faith that the right partner will come to me. I remain grounded in the belief that truly everything is happening for my highest good, just like everything is happening for your highest good. And I really surrender my life to the divine flow, knowing that I am guided and I am protected. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found what I spoke about encouraging and empowering, or you think that a friend or family member or peer or colleague would love this episode, please feel free to share it with them. Your support means the world to me, so I would love if you could rate or review or follow this podcast. This helps let me know that you love the content that I'm sharing here. Again, I would love if you could follow me on Instagram. I will always give you love back, and we can be connected in that way so that you can be a personal part of my world. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, I'm Rachel, and this is the Dangerously Divine podcast.